And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Scarlet Fu, taking you through to the closing bell with the global simulcast. It's already started. There's Tim Stenovec in the radio booth, Emily Gorfeo by his side. Carol Massar has the day off. Welcome to our audiences across our Bloomberg platforms here on a big test for the equity rally, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, a big test, but I think it's fair to say that the tech companies don't always go up, Romaine, and that's exactly what we're seeing today.
Wow.
That's what we're seeing with the Nasdaq Composite on the downside. Look at that, down 1.5%. The S&P 500 taking a hit down to the tune of 0.6%. It's being dragged down by megacap tech companies.
Bitcoin also doesn't always go up. Try convincing the crypto fans of that. But we are seeing Bitcoin down about 3% right now, and Ether falling even more than that as well.
I know that was a lot of red arrows that Tim was just showing us, but within the S&P 500, 351 stocks rising, only 150 declining. So when you look at the S&P equal weighted index, it's notable that it is up about 0.3%.
Yeah, I like the glass half full thing there, Scarlett. And it also gets to this idea of Dow Transports up more than 1% on the day, with some of those transport stocks getting a bid. And I just want to point out, too, we talk about tech stocks being on the back foot. Not all tech stocks. You take a look at the Nasdaq 100, and the number one gainer there on a percentage basis, Intel, up 7%, of course, after yesterday's 4% sell.
That's a singular story, though.
Yeah,
I think it's fair to say you're going to have to wait for my gainers to hear why.
Did I step on your toes?
If you haven't been staying tuned.
It's a deep tease.
What's Emily got? Can I step on her toes? All right, let's
don't do it.
All right, let's walk you through the closing bells here in New York. A bit of a pullback for some of the major indices here on this Tuesday afternoon. Maybe just a little bit of profit taking, maybe a rethink of the rally, maybe concerns about valuations, or maybe concerns about the Fed. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is going to end the day relatively unchanged after spending a good portion of the day in the red. It's going to close higher by roughly about 7 points. The S&P 500 is down more than 30 points, or about 0.6%. The Nasdaq Composite down about 1.5% on the day. Similar move lower for the Nasdaq 100. And the Russell 2000 dropping about 18 points on the day, or 0.8%.
Hey, Scarlett, making a really good point earlier about the number of stocks higher in the S&P 500. It really speaks to the mega cap tech nature of these companies. That is, it is a market cap weighted index. We did have 356 stocks advance in the S&P, 146 on the downside, despite the fact that it closed down 0.6%.
Yeah, but when you look at the IMAP and you look at the size of the different sectors, there's a reason why the S&P 500 closed down, even though there's 7 sectors in the green and only 4 in the red. The ones that are in the red, tech, biggest sector in the S&P 500, right? A third of the S&P. Communication services makes up about 10% of the S&P 500. Consumer discretionary makes up 10.5%. Those are your leading decliners. And communication services and tech each down more than 1%. REITs, consumer staples, and utilities, some of your smaller sectors, they're leading the gains today.
Well, speaking of gains, I do want to start with Intel. Shares surging after SoftBank agreed to buy $2 billion of the company's stock, up 7% at the end of the day today. Analysts see this news as positive, but continue to see a number of questions surrounding the company's prospects. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was on CNBC earlier today. He confirmed discussions between the U.S. and Intel for the government to take a stake in Intel, but he cast the plan as a bid to convert CHIPS and Science Act grants into equity. So, as Carol always says, the devil is in the details, and we'll wait to see those details. Also, Palo Alto Networks rising in today's trade. The company reported stronger than expected annual forecast. The company seeks to provide customers with a bundle of AI-enabled cybersecurity products to fend off attacks. Shares higher today by 3%. Palo Alto Networks CEO said, quote, "In this new era, security is no longer a bolt-on, and that an integrated best-to-beat platforms deliver superior security outcomes," according to him. And how about a little media merger news on this Tuesday? I'm watching what happened with shares of Tegna today, because Nexstar Media Group agreed to buy Tegna for $3.5 billion in an all-cash takeover. Investors certainly liked that, up 4.3% throughout the day today. The deal values Tegna at $22 a share, trading just shy of that, but it is a 44% premium to the company's stock price on August 8th, and including debt and transaction fees, it values Tegna at $6.2 billion, Emily.
All right, well, tech stocks were certainly amongst the biggest decliners of the day. Oracle was one of them that I chose to highlight. It fell about 6%. It was the biggest drop since April. Trading volume was also about 77% above the average for the time of the market close. We got news a few days ago that their longtime chief security officer, one of the highest ranking women in the cybersecurity industry, is leaving the company as part of a recent reorganization. Perhaps that's weighing on the shares a little bit today. Mary Ann Davidson, she joined Oracle in 1988. Additionally, when it comes to Oracle specific news, Bloomberg News recently reported that they're cutting jobs as the company takes steps to control costs amid heavy spending on AI infrastructure. So we talk a lot about this AI theme and spending, but here it is, maybe there was too much money and investors are taking note of that. I'm also watching shares of Viking Therapeutics. This was a big drop today after the company's experimental obesity pill disappointed investors in a mid-stage study. You look at the shares closing down 42%. Obviously, a lot of companies here racing to make those weight loss pills. Viking's pill did help patients lose up to 12.2% of their body weight, according to a statement from Viking. But almost a third of the patients dropped out of the trial in just 3 months. It seems like investors hanging on to that. And then finally, I finished with a company you guys may have heard of, Nvidia. Trading volume was about 21% above the 20-day average. It was leading losses in the market today. And it was actually the biggest full-day drop since April 21st for this chip company. It was down almost 4%.
All right, and we should point out, too, not all the activity was in the equity market. We did see activity in Treasuries coming off 3 straight days of actual price declines. We saw an increase in Treasury prices across the curve, pushing yields down all across the curve, just about 1 basis point on the short end and 3 basis points when you get out to your 10 and 30-year yields.
This may come as no surprise to our viewers and listeners who live in New Jersey, but New Jersey Transit, when you look at the other commuter rails in the tri-state area, including the Metro North and the Long Island Railroad, it's actually the worst in terms of reliability, and it's by a long shot. An analysis of real-time data shows that it's less reliable than the Metro North and Long Island Railroad, and riders face significant service disruptions at 6 times the rate of other commuters. Katie, Emily.
Wow.
1 in every 18 New Jersey Transit trains was delayed by at least 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, Katie's the New Jersey girl.
That's why
I'm the Connecticut girl. So this is kind of a win here for my state. For an average commuter, they had a bad commute roughly every 2 weeks versus once every 3 months or more if you're going to New York and Connecticut versus Katie going to New Jersey.
I feel bad because Carol should be here to defend her state. I mean, she's the New Jersey commuter. I know one of our producers commutes here from New Jersey and has to take the New Jersey Transit and is constantly texting us from wherever he's stuck, saying it's going to be another hour, it's going to be another half hour. I'll get there when I get there. So I feel for them. I'm on the Metro North, which is got pretty good timely arrivals. But you take the subway, Romaine, right? You're good.
Me? No.
You don't even take the subway. He doesn't do public transit.
He's in a limo.
Do you even know me? Speaking of which, there are other stories out there, guys, and more important stories than your gripes about your pedestrian commutes there. Labubu.
Labubu
is taking over the world, and now it's taking over the profitability of PopMart. PopMart actually just reported earnings, and its revenue jumped 200% year over year. Net income jumped 400% year over year. Of course, PopMart makes a lot of various dolls and trinkets and tokens, if you will, but nothing, at least in recent memory, has been as successful as a Labubu.
That is
Those
some
things
fat
scare me.
margins.
Yeah.
400% jump in net income, 200% jump in revenue.
Honestly,
but how long does this last?
I would have expected more.
Really?
No.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
What are the tariffs on these Labubu? Is Labubu the plural? Or do I say Labubus?
It's Labubai.
Okay.
But I guess in this idea too, I mean, we talk about these, how something that really has no value whatsoever to anyone.
That's just your opinion.
But it's just my opinion. But the way it just takes over, you see these things everywhere now. You can't even buy them when they come onto market. Scalpers just pick them up, and then they resell them for 2-3 times what they paid here. This is the craze. Tim Stenovec?
Yeah, I heard you have an entire room in your apartment dedicated to just your Labubu collection.
I do. It's called the bathroom.
Is that true? I've actually only seen one of these, but maybe I'm just not looking up from my phone enough.
I can't wait for the crossover when we get the Labubu movie. The
Labubu video
Christmas
game.
I mean,
special,
look, we all know how this
video
ends.
games.
We were around for the Beanie Babies, 25 years ago. So
Yeah, I got a closet full of those.
exactly.
Yeah.